I'd like to call to order the Cerritos Planning Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, November 6, 2024. We'd like to stand now and do the Pledge of Allegiance, and Commissioner Jafari is going to lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Javari. Let's do the roll call now.
Thank you and good evening. Roll call, please. Commissioner Member Byrd,
Present.
Commissioner Javari,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito,
Present.
Vice Chair Gandhi,
Present.
and Chair Gilheis.
Present.
All commissioners noted present for the record.
Great, thank you. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. This is our public comments and suggestions section. It's reserved for public comment on consent calendar and items not listed on the agenda, but that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the commission. The verbal comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, subject to the chair extending to 5 minutes per speaker, with a total time allotted not to exceed 45 minutes unless the chair extends. So at this point, I will open the podium for public comment. Anyone that would like to make some, please step forward and state your name for the record. Okay, seeing that no one has stepped forward, we're going to close the public comments, and we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent calendar, and it's for approval of our minutes from our Wednesday, October 2nd, 2024, 7 p.m. Planning Commission regular meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion put forward by Commissioner Jafari and seconded by Commissioner Polito to approve the minutes.
Sandy.
Okay, the commissioners can vote.
Did,
It's not on the screen.
okay, so some of us
Here.
don't have it on our screen.
Yeah.
Let me try again to go active. Yeah, it's not doing it here, and her screen's completely out. So
Okay, we'll go ahead and
we'll just,
do a roll call vote
that'll be
again.
fine. Thank you.
All right, so Commissioner Member Byrd,
Aye.
Commissioner Javari,
Aye.
Commissioner Polito,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gandhi,
Aye.
and Chair Gilheis.
Aye.
All right, and all votes are in, so that's the motion passes 5-0.
Great. Okay, so we will move on to the next item on our agenda, public hearing, item 6A. So this is to review and consideration to waive a full reading and adopt a resolution of the Cerritos Planning Commission recommending approval of conditional use permit 2024-1. Who will be giving us this presentation tonight?
Yes, thank you and good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Item 6A this evening is consideration of conditional use permit 2024-1 to permit light industrial warehousing, wholesaling, and manufacturing uses, and precise plan 2024-10 to demolish 2 existing office buildings and construct a new light industrial building at 17316 and 17326 Edwards Road. Tonight's presentation will be provided by Senior Planner Jeremy Lowe.
Thank you, Ms. Cisneros. Good evening, Chair and Cerritos Planning Commissioners. The item before us, the applicant Link Logistics is requesting approval of conditional use permit 2024-1 to permit light industrial warehousing, wholesaling, and manufacturing uses, subject to precise plan 2024-10 to demolish 2 existing 18,250 square foot two-story office buildings and to construct a new 58,467 square foot two-story industrial building at 17316 and 17326 Edwards Road in Cerritos. The proposed project also includes new landscaping, new parking areas, and other related site improvements. The applicant does not currently have a light industrial tenant for the proposed building, and the building will be developed on a speculative basis to accommodate light industrial uses. The subject property is located at 17316 and 17326 Edwards Road, located on the northeast corner of the Edwards Road and Artesia Boulevard intersection. The subject property is a 2.6 acre property zoned industrial. This is an enlarged aerial view of the subject property. The subject property was originally developed in 1983 and contains two existing office buildings, totaling 36,500 square feet in area. Access to the property is provided via two driveways off of Edwards Road, which is a 63-foot wide street. Paved vehicle parking areas are located on all four sides of the existing office buildings. The following slides show some of the existing conditions of the site and office buildings. This is a view looking east at the existing office building located at 17326 Edwards Road. This is a view looking northeast at the existing office building located at 17316 Edwards Road. These are additional photos of the subject property. Photo 1 on the left is a view looking south towards Artesia Boulevard and at the single-family residential properties beyond. Photo 2 on the right is a view looking east at the northerly shared driveway entrance and drive aisle. Here are some more photos. Photo 1 on the left is a view looking north from the southern side of Artesia Boulevard sidewalk towards the subject property and existing on-site mature trees. Photo 2 on the right is a view looking north towards the rear of the subject property at the Coyote Creek River Channel. This is the proposed site plan. The applicant is requesting to construct a new 58,467 square foot industrial building, which includes a 2,500 square foot first floor office area in the southwest corner, with a 1,500 square foot office area above that. The proposed industrial building includes a total of 50 parking stalls, including standard spaces, accessible spaces, and electric vehicle charging and capable spaces. As required by the Cerritos Municipal Code, a pedestrian circulation plan was submitted by the applicant for the proposed project. Staff has reviewed the proposed pedestrian circulation plan and finds that the proposed plan is a reasonable means to achieve improved pedestrian access and greater vehicular access and safety in the general project area of the industrial development. The applicant has hired a California licensed landscape architect who has prepared a conceptual landscape plan to landscape the entire property. The proposed landscape design features dense landscaping throughout the property, utilizing water-saving plant material in the form of trees, shrubs, and ground cover. As proposed, Catalpa trees, olive trees, and little gem magnolia trees will be planted along the Edwards Road and Artesia Boulevard street frontages, within the subject property and throughout the parking areas. Existing trees along Artesia Boulevard will also be retained to screen the property from view from residential uses located across Artesia Boulevard. Upon completion, the total amount of landscaping on site will be 15,487 square feet, or 26.3% of the unbuilt area, which meets the minimum Cerritos Municipal Code landscape requirements of 15% of the unbuilt area. On this slide is the proposed floor plan. As indicated in the report and mentioned previously, this building is being designed on a speculative basis, and there are first and second floor offices in the southeastern corner. However, the office area location has been designated on the plans, with the remaining area of the building dedicated to warehouse, wholesaling, and/or manufacturing. This is the proposed roof plan. The roof design features a centralized mechanical unit location above the proposed office portion of the building, which is highlighted in red on this screen. The proposed roof screen will be four-sided with high walls to screen all future mechanical equipment and vents from view from the adjacent Artesia Boulevard, Edwards Road, and surrounding properties to meet Cerritos Municipal Code mechanical screening requirements. Here are some proposed building cross-sections that show all the mechanical units which will be screened from view. These are proposed building elevations in color. The proposed industrial building will be a contemporary design with smooth finished tilt-up walls with 2-inch wide horizontal scored reveals and vertical panel joints forming a grid pattern. In addition, the building will feature gray concrete form liner enhancements and decorative stone accents on all 4 elevations in an effort to provide some more texture and accents to the building's architectural design. The exterior of the building will be a variation of white and gray colored tones to highlight the building's vertical and horizontal lines. Dark metal canopies will be provided above transom windows on the south, east, and west elevations, and will be featured above the building's entrances located at the southwest corner of the subject property. The windows will be a combination of blue tempered vision glass and blue tempered concrete backed spandrel glass panels with anodized aluminum mullions throughout. The north elevation of the building includes 5 truck height bay doors and 1 ground level bay door for loading and unloading purposes. On this slide is the applicant's proposed paint color and material board that shows the actual paint colors, glass color, and material samples for review. The paint color and material board has been placed on the dais for the Planning Commission's review. In addition to the colored elevations, the architect has provided a perspective rendering to show how the new industrial building will look upon completion. This is a perspective rendering looking northeast. Link Logistics, the applicant, held 2 community meetings prior to this public hearing. The first on April 24th, 2024, at the Cerritos Sheraton Hotel between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m., and the second October 1st, 2024, between 4:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. at the applicant's offices located at 12607 Hidden Creek Way, Suite B, Cerritos, California. In order to obtain public input and feedback on the proposed demolition of the existing office buildings and the construction of a new industrial building. In advance of both community meetings, the applicant mailed invitations to property owners within a 500-foot radius of the subject property. The first community meeting, which was attended by community development staff as observers, and 1 Cerritos resident who resides south of the project site. The project team presented details of the proposed project and solicited questions and comments from those in attendance. After the overview of the project was completed, the residents spoke with city staff about the proposed project and expressed concerns regarding potential truck traffic, hours of operation, and noise. Following the April 2024 community meeting, the city received email correspondence from the resident who participated, expressing concerns regarding potential environmental impacts such as noise, air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, etc., and also requesting an assessment of designated truck routes. In addition, the resident requested that the hours of operation be limited and that the applicant fund fence and/or wall improvements for privacy purposes for the private residential properties located across Artesia Boulevard to the south. The resident's public comment to staff and the Planning Commission is provided as Exhibit 19 in the report. In response to the correspondence received, the city informed the resident that a thorough environmental analysis is required for the proposed infill project, and that such analysis and technical studies would appropriately assess potential impacts and would be provided to the resident prior to consideration by the Planning Commission and City Council. The second community meeting on October 1st, 2024 was held. This meeting also was attended by community development staff and observers, and 1 additional Cerritos resident who did not previously attend the first community meeting. The resident attended the meeting to obtain information about the proposed project. A traffic impact assessment was required by the city and prepared as part of the city's review of the proposed project. a traffic consultant was retained to provide the traffic impact analysis, which included a vehicle miles traveled, or VMT analysis, and a level of service analysis, or LOS, as well as a warrant analysis for traffic signal improvements. Pursuant to the VMT assessment and use of these guidelines, the existing site as a general office use classification generates a total of 396 daily trips, with 56 trips during the AM peak hour and 53 during PM peak hours. The PM peak hour, excuse me. In contrast, the proposed use as a general light industrial use classification is anticipated to result in a total of 285 daily trips, with 43 trips produced in the AM peak hour and 38 trips produced in the PM peak hour. Therefore, the proposed project is forecasted to generate approximately 111 fewer net daily trips, therefore having less than significant impact on traffic. The analysis concluded there will be no significant traffic impacts, and the city's engineering division concurs with the traffic impact assessment conclusions. In addition, in the interest of studying the applicability of the change of use and/or improvements to the subject property, a traffic signal warrant analysis was conducted for the Edwards Road and Artesia Boulevard intersection, which is directly adjacent to the subject property. Such analysis determined that some criteria warranting a traffic signal at this intersection has been met, and therefore the installation of a traffic signal at this intersection should be considered as part of the proposed project. It should be noted, however, that as a result of a separate past analysis of this intersection by the City of Cerritos, the city has included a project in its City Council adopted fiscal year 2024-2025 capital improvement program for the installation of a traffic signal at this intersection. And that is project number 23401. So the city had already identified this intersection for future improvements. While funds are not anticipated to be expended for this CIP capital improvement project until fiscal year 2025 to 2026, the applicant for the proposed project will be required to contribute its fair share, 3.73% of the estimated project cost, towards the traffic signal installation prior to the issuance of permits for the proposed project. In addition to the traffic analyses, the city established truck routes were assessed to verify that adequate truck routes would support the new light industrial building, with little to no direct impacts to residential properties in the city of Cerritos. As mentioned previously, the proposed new light industrial building includes 5 truck height bay doors and 1 ground level bay door for loading and unloading purposes. In response to such assessment, project-specific condition of approval 61 has been added for conditional use permit 2024-1 and precise plan 2024-10 in order to designate the required truck routes for trucks arriving at or leaving from the subject property once occupied by a tenant. Pursuant to project-specific condition of approval 61, the following designated truck routes will be required in order to divert truck traffic away from sensitive land uses. This slide describes the allowed truck routes entering the subject property. This slide is a continuation of project-specific condition of approval 61 and further describes the required truck routes exiting the subject property. This slide shows the actual truck route map that illustrates the required truck routes for the proposed development. These are the existing established truck routes for this area of the city relative to the subject property, and no changes to the existing established truck routes have been made due to the proposed development. The project has been evaluated in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, and the city's Environmental Impact Report guidelines. The Cerritos Department of Community Development has determined that the proposed project is exempt from CEQA review, pursuant to sections 15332 and 15300.2 of the state CEQA guidelines. The environmental document prepared for this project demonstrates that the proposed project qualifies for a CEQA exemption as an infill development project, or Class 32 exemption, consistent with the provisions of CEQA guidelines, sections 15332 and 15300.2, and provides information for city decision makers to find that the proposed project is exempt from CEQA. Pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15332, the proposed project qualifies for a Class 32 exemption because it is 1. Consistent with the general plan designation and policies and zoning regulations. 2. Is located within the city limits, surrounded by urban uses, and is less than 5 acres in size. 3. Has no value for endangered, rare, or threatened species. 4. Would not result in any significant effects related to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality. And 5. Can be adequately served by all required utilities and public services. Additionally, the environmental document demonstrates that the proposed project and its circumstances would not result in any exceptions identified in CEQA guidelines section 15300.2. These next few slides will go over each of the conditions and how the proposed project meets those conditions related to the infill development CEQA exemption, the Class 32 exemption. This first condition at the top of the slide is the project consistent with general plan, zoning designation, and regulations? The proposed project involves the demolition of 2 existing 18,250 square foot, 2-story office buildings and to construct a new 58,467 square foot, 2-story industrial building. As noted in the staff report and environmental analysis, the subject property is zoned industrial, has a land use designation of light industrial, and the proposed project is consistent with the goals and policies of the general plan, and as proposed, meets all of the regulations of the industrial zone. The second condition is that the project site must be no more than 5 acres in size and substantially surrounded by urban uses. The subject property is 2.6 acres in size and is substantially surrounded by urban uses. The third condition, that no value as habitat for endangered, rare, or threatened species is going to be affected. The subject property contains 2 existing office buildings and a wireless telecommunications facility. There are no known animals on site and as such has no value as a habitat for endangered, rare, or threatened species. There is no evidence of sensitive environmental receptors such as endangered species. The fourth condition, approval would not result in any significant effects relating to traffic, air quality, or water quality. And I will address those in turn. Traffic. The project would not result in any significant traffic impacts. As explained earlier in the presentation, the traffic impact analysis included in the staff report concluded that the proposed project would have no adverse traffic impacts either to the level of service or vehicle miles traveled. Noise. The proposed project will not have any significant noise impacts. The city's environmental consultant reviewed noise and vibration impacts related to the project, with details provided in the environmental analysis found in the staff report, included as Exhibit 20. Overall, the analysis concluded that the proposed project would not result in any significant impacts related to noise or vibration. Therefore, the proposed project meets the noise-related criteria of CEQA Guidelines Section 15332. Air quality. The city's environmental consultant has conducted a review of the air quality impacts related to the project and found that the proposed project will not have any significant air quality impacts. In addition to the air quality analysis, a greenhouse gas emission study and health risk assessment was reviewed as part of the environmental analysis, which concluded that there will be less than significant impacts. Water quality. The proposed project will not have any significant water quality impacts. The proposed project requires city review and approval of civil plans and related documents such as an erosion control plan, grading plan, and low impact design plan in compliance with the city's Stormwater and Urban Runoff Pollution Prevention Controls Ordinance number 986. which provides specific local regulations related to stormwater pollution prevention. The State Water Resource Control Board will require a construction activities stormwater general permit, requiring the applicant to submit a stormwater pollution prevention plan prior to permit issuance. Further detailed analysis has been provided in the environmental analysis provided as Exhibit 20 for the report. Therefore, the proposed new industrial project will result in improved water quality from the current site conditions by complying with current Cerritos municipal requirements and ordinances. The final condition, that the site can be adequately served by all required utilities and public services. The site for the proposed use has adequate access to utilities and other services required for the proposed use. The subject property is currently connected to existing electrical, water, sewer, and stormwater lines, all of which will be required for the function of the new use. Therefore, staff has determined that the project meets the conditions for the categorical exemption allowed for infill development under Section 15332 of CEQA guidelines. In addition to meeting the 5 requirements outlined on the last slides related to 15322 infill development, CEQA Guidelines Section 15300.2 provides specific instances where exceptions apply to a project that would otherwise meet the requirements for an exemption. The city's environmental consultant has reviewed the listed exceptions and has found that this project does not meet the exceptions listed in Section 15300.2 of CEQA, and therefore the 15332 CEQA exemption can be applied to this project in accordance with the guidelines. This concludes the details of the proposed project as well as the CEQA analysis. Before you this evening is consideration of conditional use permit 2024-1 to permit light industrial warehousing, wholesaling, and manufacturing uses at the subject property, as well as precise plan 2024-10 to demolish 2 existing office buildings, construct a new industrial building, and complete other related site improvements. At this time, it is recommended that the Planning Commission review and discuss the information provided, conduct a public hearing, and adopt a resolution recommending approval of conditional use permit 2024-1 by the City Council, and adopt a resolution recommending approval of precise plan 2024-10 by the City Council. City staff would like to note that the sanitation district received a public hearing notice and inquired about the project. However, after reviewing the details of the project with staff, they indicated that there was no comments. Staff would also like to propose some corrections and amendments to the project conditions of approval. The first is the project-specific condition of approval 54, the Artesia Boulevard sidewalk. Engineering and planning staff have reviewed this condition with the applicant and would like to revise the first sentence to read 180 square feet instead of 260 square feet. Next is project-specific condition of approval 54. Staff would like to change the words square feet to linear feet, which was a typographical error. And lastly, for the records, the correct name of the applicant is Link Logistics, which will be corrected in the report to replace Link Logistics Incorporated. This concludes staff presentation. Current planning manager Sandy Cisneros and I would be happy to answer any questions at this time. The city's associate engineer, Amadit Mann, is also present to answer any questions at this time, representing the city's engineering department. And the city's environmental consultants, EPD Solutions, are also available for questions from the commission. And the project applicants are in the audience. And again, that concludes my presentation.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I do want to state for the record, when I introduced this item, I only read one of the resolutions. I just read 2024-1. We know that it's both 2024-1 and 2024-10. So do any of my fellow commissioners have questions or comments? Commissioner Byrd?
Yes, I'm curious as how you can determine the traffic flow when we don't even know what's going to be going in there, right?
So the environmental consultants are here to provide additional detail. However, essentially they base that analysis on the proposed use, which is light industrial, which has certain
Restrictions.
projected traffic volumes, and that's basically like a coefficient which is applied to the square footage of the project. But again, they can provide further detailed analysis.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gandhi?
Thank you, Chair Gilheist. I had a similar question. When we're looking at the resolution, it says permit the property owner to permit light industrial warehousing, wholesaling, and manufacturing uses. Would you be able to give me some information on the manufacturing uses part?
So the City of Cerritos Municipal Code in the industrial zone allows for those uses as conditional uses. And so manufacturing would involve the assembly of parts, assembly of products on site.
Okay, so that's not producing parts or using metals to produce part or any of that stuff, like heavy industry kind of stuff.
Yeah, so light industrial is light industrial. In the city of Cerritos, we don't allow the heavy industrial where you would like have a business that was melting metal into forms and creating products in that manner. They would be delivered products that they would assemble. It could be circuit boards, it could be all kinds of different types of things. We've had a manufacturing plant. They've done like I remember one was a yoga mats. They took it and they imprinted with a little press, different designs on yoga mats, and that's a manufacturing use. But it's very benign. There's all kinds of different types of manufacturing that's mostly just assembly because, again, the city of Cerritos doesn't allow heavy industry, only light industrial, and that's part of our general plan. It's part of the plan.
So my concern is simply because it's so close to the residential homes across the street. There's not going to be much use of chemicals, is there? Or allowed?
Anytime we receive a business license, and this is when it comes to once the building is built or it exists, on a daily basis, we get business licenses for all of the industrial areas. As part of the review, it's both a business license and an occupancy use permit. The occupancy use permit is the zoning approval, and that's what planning reviews. And what we do is we look in the listings of what it is they do. Does it fit in the categories of the M zone? And then there's a questionnaire that the fire department has as one of the documents that's submitted with a business license. And in there, they have to list any chemicals that they use, and we always review all of that. If there's anything questionable, we consult with the fire department. We double check because we are looking at, we don't want to create any impacts to adjacent sensitive land uses. And if it turns out it's something that could be hazardous or whatever, it may be just denied.
So we're essentially approving the construction of this warehouse kind of facility, not knowing. So to be determined later on what it's going to be used for based on or subject to approval of the city in terms of allowing that kind of business in there, correct?
Yes. So, throughout the years, a particular, sometimes buildings come with a tenant and they build it for a specific tenant. And then that tenant goes away and it's vacant. And so a new tenant will come in and it's not the one that was approved for the particular conditional use permit. But, those buildings, it can read report after report in all of our archives, and it's manufacturing, warehousing, and those type of uses, office. They're all the same. So we look at each business as they come and go throughout time, and we look at the what it is that they want to do, and we make sure that it fits in the guidelines, and we have specific guidelines that are written in your conditional use section of the report. We look at all of those things to make sure it's light industrial, it fits in the category, and that it's not going to create any impacts. And it's on those, when it's that, if there's something out of the ordinary, then we may say, this isn't going to work. And if you want to do this use, we're going to have to take you back for another CUP, because this doesn't fit into the general requirements of warehousing and manufacturing and office that this was approved and reviewed for originally. So if it's something completely out of the ordinary or something that in that manner, we would have them come back.
Would you give me some information about what other businesses are located along this Edward Road next to this upcoming?
Well, I believe we have, I think Revolve Clothing has a few warehouses down Edwards Road. I think 3 or 4 warehouses, and they warehouse clothes, and all the products that they sell. I believe we have some lithographic companies that do printing. There's a company next to across the way. I don't know if they're still there, but they were manufacturing dentures. So they did, partials and things like that. I remember there was a couple of them right next door to each other. And so we've had all kinds of different businesses. There's just so many businesses that could possibly be. And most of them in a light industrial area, they're not things that create much impact. And we do review everything very thoroughly.
So can I make a presumption here that when you do the study, you go ahead and study like the maximum impact or the minimum impact on the traffic, or like Commissioner Byrd just asked, since we don't know what's in there. So when you do this study, would it be fair to say that you guys, when you do the study, it looks at the maximum? So let's say there is Revolve next doors, they move out and another warehouse comes in there, another business comes in, and their traffic is going to be just as heavy or heavier. So all that has been considered in the report?
If you're talking about the environmental analysis, yes. As Jeremy Lowe our senior planner was explaining, they look at specific typical numbers for, the traffic counts, for all of the review, the water, the air quality, all of those things that they've done analysis, they put in numbers related to typical industrial uses. And as part of our review, like for instance, let's just say traffic. If we look at the traffic and there's a VMT analysis, which is the vehicle miles traveled, by just looking at those numbers, it doesn't need an environmental analysis or it doesn't need a traffic analysis, because just by the virtue of the numbers that are presented, it's not required. However, the City of Cerritos, our engineering public works department, we take a more conservative approach to that review. So even though it says that there's no impact, we've gone the extra mile and done a full traffic analysis, a full level of service analysis. We've studied intersections all over the surrounding areas to check to make sure, and we've verified that even though it says just for the initial look that it's okay, we've gone the extra mile. And that is our typical approach, is the conservative route. And when the consultants are looking at it, they're looking at it in that manner.
That's much appreciated. But just to clarify something, so when you look at the traffic impact, does it include possibility of other businesses impacting it in terms of the road, the traffic on that road, Edwards, considering there are other warehouses there. So is that what's included, or is it just
Yeah,
the traffic coming out of this one particular?
I would refer to our environmental, the traffic consultant that's here to answer that question.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Alex Garber. I'm with EPD Solutions, and I helped prepare the traffic study. The typical way that these studies are done is counts are taken at the intersections that are to be analyzed. So we take counts that are less than a year old to see what the existing traffic conditions are. We then look at any projects that are in the area that have been recently approved but not yet built. And for a opening year analysis, we include all of those potential trips that we wouldn't imagine are there today since it hasn't been built. And then in addition, on top of that, add a 2% growth for general growth that is unknown at this time. For the project, we use rates that are part of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, that they have volumes that they release every 4 years. They're on the 11th edition, and they take surveys from all across the country of typical uses of that type. We used general light industrial because it has the highest trip rate of the industrial type of uses, so that we could be inclusive of all potential types of industrial projects that could come in. And then additionally, we used a vehicle split of warehouses, which has the highest percentage of trucks as compared to passenger vehicles, so that we could be conservative on both ends, analyzing the most amount of trucks we could anticipate and the most amount of trips that would be associated with a industrial type project.
Thank you. So, if I'm understanding it correctly, what I asked earlier was, you guys kind of presume the maximum load so that at least you're conservative in terms of the way you look at things.
Correct.
Right. Thank you very much. There's a letter from a resident that was in the package. And one of the points that the resident made was that they didn't have a lot of the information that is being presented here today when the public meeting was held. Is that how normally we do things? Is that regularly done that way?
Yes. So in this case, we had retained at the point of the first meeting, the project applications were filed, and we had retained the environmental consultant. And then the applicant, held the community meeting in an effort to understand the concerns of the community, so that we would have that opportunity to include that in our environmental review. And so the point was to have it before we did that, so that we could look at any concerns the residents would have. And that's what the intent was of the applicant when they held it.
So there was 2 meetings held.
Yes.
So was this the second meeting held after there was information that they could be provided to the public, and was it provided?
Right. So the first, when the resident came to the first meeting, they had sent an email indicating that their concerns about all the things that we listed in our in the report, and then we responded to him that these things were going to be reviewed, and that once it was completed, we would send it to the resident, which we did by email and a Dropbox. So we gave them everything, and I have confirmed that it was received. Yeah.
And so there was no comments after they received the information?
I haven't
Correct.
received any response after provided, no.
Okay. So there was a few concerns that were listed on this one. One of them was obviously traffic and the hours of operation. Is there any restriction that the city can place for hours of operation?
Yes, so, okay, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so project-specific conditions of approval were applied to the project, including one which was hours of operation. And so the hours of operation would be limited to 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And that would apply to any future users or tenants because it's going to be part of the conditional use permit and precise plan approvals.
So it was 7 to 10 p.m.?
10 p.m.
And that one, what was the number again, Jeremy? That was number 60.
That's what you got.
Yes.
And that is related to truck loading, unloading, and delivery hours of operations.
Is it specific to that?
It's specific to that because those are the noise producing items that would affect any residential properties.
Why 10 p.m.? Well, why did we do 10 p.m.?
Generally, that is the city's limitations on like noise producing uses, like restaurants, outdoor, restaurants with like outdoor dining and stuff generally end at 10. And that is because there's a nearby sensitive use, which would be single family residential. So we do have in other parts of the city, businesses that might operate beyond 10 p.m. But for the purpose of this project, we limited it to 10.
Okay, so other warehouses in this city do have restrictions or they don't? What is it? This one was specific?
It's basically project specific. So hours of operation will actually generally be reviewed when they come in for their business license. We do ask them for their hours of operation. In the case of this building, any future user will be limited to those hours with regards to truck loading and unloading and deliveries. If they wanted to have some guys working in the office past 10 p.m. but not doing any loading, unloading, or delivering, that would be permissible.
But you wouldn't limit the truck traffic?
Correct, to 10 p.m.
No. Would it limit the truck traffic after 10 p.m.? So would trucks be allowed to come in and park?
There should be no deliveries
None.
after 10 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a couple more questions, and then there was the traffic light. Would you give me a little bit more information about that? There is talk about putting a traffic light there.
Yeah, so again, there was a past analysis performed by the city which identified the intersection of Edwards Road and Artesia Boulevard for a future traffic signal. I can't speak to the past analysis. However, the current analysis, which was prepared by our traffic consultant, as part of an analysis, we actually looked at 8 intersections in the area. And part of that analysis included level of service. And with regards to the level of service for intersections, there's what's called control time delay or average control delay, something like that. And it's measured in seconds. And that's how long someone is expected to be waiting there. And there's certain levels of service ranging from A down to F. A being the best, meaning free flowing, no wait at all, to F being significantly delayed. And the city of Cerritos, with regards to level of service, has a minimum level of service of D, which I can't speak to how many seconds that would be with regards to signalized or unsignalized intersections. In the case of this intersection, it was identified as having a level of service less than D, meaning it needs to be brought up at least to that level, which is why a traffic signal is warranted.
When was this analysis done?
So the current traffic analysis was prepared, and the report is dated August. Sorry,
The report is dated August 29th of this year.
Of this year?
Mhm.
Okay. And then is the city going to determine whether this traffic light goes in or not, independent of whether this project is approved or not?
So yeah, independent of this project, the city had already identified for the fiscal year 2025, 2026 to put in a traffic signal. And it does have a city project number, 23401. So the city had already identified that as a future project in the capital improvement program. However, city council, based on the budget, could always modify that. They can push it to a future year or something, but it was identified as an improvement for the city to do.
Okay. The other point that the resident had brought up was about the last mile Let me make sure I said that. To prohibit a last mile facility. Yeah. I'm trying to understand, so just pardon my ignorance, but would last mile facility or whatever business it is be part of what we would be approving?
So last month,
I'm sorry if I may, it's last mile facility use. So it's how they're going to use the area or something, and I was going to ask the same thing. It's not an actual facility, it's the use of that. So can you explain to us what last mile
Yes.
facility use is?
Yeah, so a last
thank you.
mile facility would be something that basically accepts a lot of deliveries, and then from this particular location would then deliver it. So that would be something like an Amazon, a fulfillment center, and we do not permit that.
So that's not a permitted use for this particular location?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, we added project-specific condition approval 64 in the report. Use approval. We have added this, if you recall, last year when we took the industrial building on Shoemaker. So this exact same condition of approval was added to that, again, to not allow for an Amazon-like a distribution center. And we, basically, this condition says if they want to do that, then they're going to have to come back for another CUP, because this approval is not for that. And so we were very specific in condition 64. So we've done that in the past, and we could understand the concern from the resident. We intended to put it in there anyway, but it is in there, and it is what the neighbor was concerned about.
Okay, and then the last one that they've pointed out here is the visual privacy for the residents across the street. Would you kind of address that for me, please?
Jeremy, could you put on the slide the photo from across Artesia Boulevard?
Yes, I can. One moment.
All right, so I took this photo and had this put into the PowerPoint presentation. This is the view from Artesia Boulevard on the other side of the street, where I was backing to the backyards of the fences from the residents. So as part of this project, city staff wanted to make sure that none of the existing full mature trees would be removed as part of the new industrial project. So it's going to remain, and it's shown on the conceptual landscape plans for them to be protected in place. So the Artesia Boulevard at this location is a little elevated, and then the site itself goes down a little bit. There's a slope. So it slopes down and goes into the parking lot. Another item I wanted to point out is the building height. The maximum building height in the M zone is 35 feet. This building the existing buildings are 35 feet. The new building will be 35 feet. Generally speaking, there won't be much of a difference in the view from the residential from what is shown in this picture. It will look basically the same. The resident had asked for the developer to fund the replacement of the walls also. That's probably on your next question. That's also in her letter or email. And typically for development projects, we don't request improvements off-site into private properties.
So from what I'm hearing, this whole visual privacy thing is not really an issue.
It's all an opinion, right? The resident's opinion. But as far as staff's review of this, there doesn't appear to be any change in the visual look or privacy that would be changed or altered as a result of this project.
Okay, and one last question I have. I realize that currently, depending on, what is already there will be an increase in the noise and traffic if this is approved. But it is within the guidelines or whatever the I guess the rules are, or within the limits of whatever is allowed. But it would be an increase in noise and traffic.
I will speak on traffic specifically as I did not prepare the noise report, but the project actually is going to reduce vehicle trips as compared to the existing use. So it would result in a reduction of 24 vehicles in the morning peak hour and 26 in the PM peak hour. However, the types of vehicles will be slightly different as there will be more trucks associated with this use as compared to the existing one. So that's why the analysis was prepared, even though there is an overall reduction in vehicle trips. And then for noise, I can pass it to.
Good evening. I think for noise, just very broadly, currently the building has a drive aisle and has parking spaces that are along Artesia Boulevard and between the building and Artesia Boulevard. The way that the project site has currently been designed, this new proposed project, is to not have a drive aisle there, to just have landscaping and to just have the building be there, but there's no truck, no cars even will be parking along Artesia Boulevard. So in theory, it really should reduce some of that door slamming. If anything does come across Artesia Boulevard, it's designed to provide more privacy, so less people are using it along Artesia. And then the truck courts are designed to be completely on the other side of the building, away from the residential use. So it's a court, and then the loading docks are in there. So the driveway is farther away. The loading docks are completely away from the residential use.
So they're using the second driveway for the trucks
Yeah,
to go to the dock. Is that what it is? Okay. Thank you very much for all the information. I appreciate it. That's all I've got.
Those are great questions. Thank you, Vice Chair Gandhi. Question as order of process. I'm going to have questions for the business rep. And so do I need to just ask those questions, or do I need to open public comments? What's the order?
Madam Chair, you can go ahead and open the public comment so that if there are questions that are asked of any of the commissioners that may have the business owner or the applicant respond, that would be the appropriate process.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm gonna open them. Right, I'm gonna open them, but they're not gonna step up until I call them. I'll go up because I'm gonna go last. All right, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public comments at this point. I'm still gonna let my fellow commissioners ask their questions. And since I typically go last, then I'll call the people I need to ask questions from to the podium. Is that good? Okay, so public comments are open. Okay, Commissioner Polito, would you like to ask any questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, some of my questions have been asked, but an additional question about, because this would include, it doesn't include another permit for large-scale trucking, shipping, container, storage, freightway distribution center. I know that was part of one of the conditions, but if this were to come back to us, because it says to require condition of a new conditional permit, it says supplemental environmental analysis would need to be done. So I realized that there was a lot of the studies that were already done. So what other additional things would be done, hypothetically?
Well, just to start off, I would say that if this type of project came before planning staff and it was filed and submitted, it would come to you without staff's recommendation. So that's number one. Staff would not most likely recommend that type of use for this location or in this area. And then secondly, they would have to do a full environmental analysis related to whatever they were proposing. It would have to start over.
Commissioner, can I interrupt 1 second? Would you repeat the first part, please? I just completely missed it.
I said that if a proposal for a large-scale distribution facility was submitted as a separate application in the future, most likely staff would not recommend approval. So when we present a report, we recommend approval or we recommend to deny it. So in this case, it would be my feeling that staff probably would not support this type of use if it came before the commission. So we would recommend that the planning commission deny it versus what we've done today would be to recommend to approve.
But isn't it like explicit? You have a condition here that says you cannot do that, right? And the use approval, didn't we just hear that correctly?
Yes, you did, Commissioner. Mrs. Cisneros was answering in the hypothetical. If a future application for that use were to come forward, this would not allow it. What's before the commission right now does not allow that.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Thank you. And then my second question was about, you mentioned the pedestrian circulation plan. Can you talk a little bit more about that a little bit? But I think it was also included in the, as part of the conditions, I think.
Yeah, so, and allow me to bring up my screen again. So this plan basically shows with a dashed line that from the, and I'm referencing the bottom picture here. There's a dashed line basically showing that there is going to be a path of travel from Artesia Boulevard towards the entrance of this building at the southwestern corner. And that's also showing a dash line to the 80 accessible parking spaces at the front as well. At the top of the page shows, again, dash lines from the building moving towards a trash enclosure. So going from right to left, there's a dash line there. And then, of course, there's sidewalks along Edwards Road where pedestrians can walk up and down and enter the facility by the two driveways.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Polito. Commissioner Javari, would you like to ask some questions?
I have a couple of questions. One is, does the applicant have a list of the tenants? Because usually when they come up with such a big project, they usually have some tentative tenants that they know of.
We could let the applicant answer that question, but to my knowledge, it's purely speculative with none in mind.
Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Tallene Defino. I work with Link, the applicant, and at this point, we do not have a list, but we are large owners nationwide and are actively seeking tenants for this space. The space should be on the market for lease as soon as we break ground, and we'll be actively seeking a tenant at that point.
So not even your manufacturing units or no one?
Say that again, sorry.
You don't have the tentative names of the tenants for manufacturing units or anything
No,
else?
and we designed this so that it fits an envelope for a handful of tenants that could vary from light manufacturing to assembly to light industrial.
I see. And thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
To the other question that we have is, say there is a manufacturing unit which does get the permit from the city to do business, and then months down the road or a year down the road, whenever, they sublease it to another manufacturer. The city is not aware, and say that manufacturer, the environmental hazard posed by that sublease manufacturer is pretty high. What happens?
So every business that operates in the city of Cerritos will need a business license. So whomever, I don't even know if they would be allowed to sublease per the property owners, but supposing that happens without anyone's knowledge, any business would require their own business license. And if it was ever discovered, we would need them to go through the process of applying for a business license. And if it was a heavy industrial use that we would normally not allow, we would then have to deny them and essentially, through some process, evict them.
Yes, I'm aware of that. You do need license. However, if it is subleased without the knowledge of the city, and city is not that they keep checking every month. My concern is, what about the environmental hazard? If that is higher by the new manufacturer, the manufacturer who's subleasing it from the other manufacturer, how would you be able to tackle that?
Would you like me to take a chance
Sure.
of that, Commissioner? And I'm
Thank
happy
you.
to take the first step, because I think there are two issues. First of all, if there is an unauthorized sublease, most likely that would not only violate the terms of the property owner for any lease they may have, but separately, where the city would have authority under its general police powers to remedy any situation that may have a hazardous substance or some kind of violation, is through typical code enforcement. And that can, and responses can range to immediate shutting down an operation if necessary, because there are exigent circumstances that might be dangerous, or if it's less dangerous, but it's something that's still in violation of what would be allowable pursuant to the CUP, then there's a process to, they would be required to stop immediately, and they could go through a process to appeal it. But we would be able to take care of that through our general code enforcement and police powers.
That is, if the city comes to know of it.
Yes, that's true. And that can happen, I suppose, a number of ways, not just with city being out on patrol, but a lot of times neighbors, residents, or business operators that are nearby may contact the city. And that would be a basis for then investigating.
All right, thank you. Regarding the traffic analysis, what route do you guys think that the big trucks usually take on their way to this industrial or to this site?
Do you mind bringing back up the truck route map that was in the presentation? It'll help to visualize the route that trucks would take, because the vehicles or the trucks that would be going to the project site
That's right.
would be heading down this Valley View Avenue and turning right onto Artesia Boulevard, both of which are identified as truck routes, and then going onto the site in that second driveway where the truck court is.
Excuse me for one second.
Yeah.
Can
Yes.
you put the map up so that
So
we can see what
actually,
he's speaking to? That'd
I
help
would-
all of us.
I actually have to apologize. My laptop, for whatever reason, isn't responding to my commands. So
Which is fine. So I know exactly what he's saying. So from Valley View, they would make a right onto Artesia Boulevard,
Correct.
right?
And
I
then
don't know
on,
whether-
oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
don't know whether you're aware of the fact that there is a restriction of the weight that a truck can weigh on Artesia Boulevard from Valley View onwards.
Correct. So the, and I can leave this to city staff as well to confirm, but the conditions for this project is the trucks for this site would use Valley View Avenue and be restricted to making that right turn on Artesia and then right turn on Edwards Road to get to the site and to leave the site.
Right, but they are not legally permitted to come on Artesia Boulevard,
And
big trucks.
So I,
Artesia Boulevard is a truck route, it's a major highway, it's our truck route. Artesia
Not on
Boulevard,
Artesia Boulevard, right?
yeah, Artesia Boulevard is a truck route.
So they can come out of the property and turn left. They cannot come out of the property and turn right.
Exactly.
correct.
That is correct.
And that keeps them on the trucking part of Artesia Boulevard.
That is correct.
But this side would be on right.
No, they're,
It depends where you're coming from.
well, when they come out of the driveway, they would turn left. And then when they would turn left again on Artesia and head towards Valley View, going east. And then from there, they could get the freeways.
When they're coming on 5 freeway, coming to the site.
Yes, they can come down, they can get off, they can go down Valley View again and then go to Artesia and then turn right into Edwards and into the property.
But before they come to Edwards, the cross street between Artesia and Valley View.
That is a truck route.
Not to my knowledge.
Amandeep, if you wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Commissioners. That's a truck route. Trucks are prohibited on that section of Artesia. It's just, I believe, west of Marquardt, we don't allow it. Our Marquardt and Carmenita, we don't allow trucks. So trucks cannot use Artesia to access 91, but they have to use Valley View to access the 91 and the 5.
Right. So when they come on 5 freeway, come on Valley View, they make a right. But before on Marquardt, they cannot go past that because of the restrictions.
That's correct. They cannot go past Marquardt. They have to, when they're coming from Valley View, they turn onto Artesia, and then they have to turn onto Edwards to access the site. They cannot go past Edwards.
So up to Marquardt, they're allowed? Yes. Okay.
Does this help? That's the 5.
Yeah,
That's Valley View. That's Artesia. They come Valley View to Artesia, turn right. They go down, that's the building, that's Edwards. They can turn in there. When they load, then they come out. They can't go this way. They can only go back that way.
Where's Marquardt?
It might be down here. I don't know which way it exactly runs.
Okay. Great. Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jabari, any other questions? Okay, so somebody asked some of my questions, and then that made me think of other questions. So I don't know if that was good or bad, Vice Chair. But anyhow, what I'd like to do at this point is I'd like to ask the representative from Link Logistics to come to the podium and tell us about Link Logistics. What's their business plan? What are you selling? Is it a service? Is it goods? Just about Link Logistics.
Hi, I'm Tallene. Thank you guys all for being here tonight. I work with Link and my team's here as well as our architect to answer any questions you might have in addition to this. But to answer this question, we are real estate owners by and large throughout the states, and we own all shapes and sizes of industrial real estate, and we house all shapes and sizes of users in this space, and those are our customers that we take pride in serving. And our motto is that there's always space to grow for our customers, so we're providing a space for them to incubate in to eventually also grow up into larger warehouse facilities.
Great. So there's 2 buildings on the property right now. Do you own those buildings and the property?
Yeah, great question. So we've been long-term owners of this real estate for a while now, and we've faced issues with leasing just based on the state of the office market. We've had chronic issues with vacancy. as well as issues with leasing due to the dilapidated state of the real estate. And so we are excited to bring a new product to the area that'll enhance the community, but also create a more usable space for tenants.
Okay, so yeah, I can see that with people working remotely. You can't rent offices as much. And so you're going to change the use of that property. That's what you're asking. So that there's the warehousing, the manufacturing, the wholesaling. But you don't have actual customers yet to come in and say, you could get a customer who says, I'm going to do light manufacturing.
Correct.
They might not do wholesaling at all or any warehousing.
Or combination of.
Right. Okay. So I think for the company, that's all the questions I have at the moment. I'm going to ask the city a couple of questions now.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answers.
One thing on that. So did you guys rent it out to PS Business Parks?
Great question. We actually acquired PS Business Parks about 4 years ago. Is that correct? 3 years ago, and acquired a lot of their employees as well that have managed and owned that asset for a long time.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a couple of things happening here. We have the conditional use, and then we have the demolition. So when I was reading the information about the conditional use, I kind of got hung up, same place that Commissioner Polito got hung up, and that the conditional use permit says it shall be noted that the conditional use does not include nor permit large-scale trucking, shipping container storage, freight distribution center uses at the subject property, nor any comparable use that generates significant semi-truck and/or semi-truck trips. So should the current property owner or future property owner desire to use the property for that purpose, and I'm paraphrasing some stuff, such use shall require consideration of a new conditional permit. So what I'd like to understand, when I look at the plans, you can, is your computer working yet to show some pictures? Okay, no worries. When I was looking at the board and was looking at the plans, it does show the loading docks, the bays with the big doors that come up, the trucks drive up to them. So we're going ahead and we're going to build a facility that allows for that, even though the use says they won't be able to use it. So tell me how we differentiate between, and this is for the city, large-scale trucking versus non-large-scale trucking. How do we know the difference?
I'll go ahead and answer that. So it has 5 bay doors. For a business that's a large-scale distributor, you would have lots and lots and lots of bay doors. You'd have, this really couldn't support that type of use anyway, because it's just so small. It doesn't have, it's not a big building in comparison to something that would be in that magnitude to be a distribution center. I mean, we're talking like something like on Moore Street that's for UPS, that kind of thing.
Will the building accommodate an 18-wheel truck to those doors?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
They're truck bay doors. Yes.
So it's not about the size of the truck, because like you could have an Amazon truck like comes on my street, right? And that's one of those smaller van looking kind of trucks.
Right.
But then there's 18-wheel trucks. So the building is going to be able to accommodate
semi-trucks,
18-wheel
yes.
trucks.
Yes.
But it's not going to be like the Amazon distribution center in Eastvale where there's 30 cargo doors. There's going to be 5.
Yes.
And so we say that's not large scale because there's not a high quantity of doors for the trucks to
volume.
come to.
It couldn't
Okay.
accommodate. It couldn't accommodate the volume that would be. They wouldn't even look at this building for that purpose. They would never seek it out. It's too small.
Okay, so thank you for that information. Now I understand. So we can, and if they do it, if they lease this to a company that's going to be using those trucks, we will see 18-wheel trucks in that neighborhood coming into there. And it may only be 3 at a time, it may be 1 at a time, maybe 5. But it will be the big trucks. That's what I just want to make sure I understood the size of the trucks.
Well, the thing is, with a speculative business, we don't know. We know that the bay will accommodate a semi-truck,
Right.
but there's all kinds of different trucks that could use the bays that not necessarily be big. So it could be all trucks, or it could be a variety of different things. We look at business licenses and uses every day. They come in, and we, as part of we require what's called a statement of use letter. And on the statement of use letter, we ask a variety of questions. And one of the questions we ask is, how many trucks do you have? What are their sizes? All of those things, because we want to know the specifics. That's our job. We look at what is this impact in this location? Is this appropriate for this location? And so it could be anything. We don't know, but it's not going to be something large scale because it's a small building with only 5 truck bays. So it can't really accommodate a large use.
Okay, so I'm going to switch my questions now to the actual property and the renovation of the property. So you showed us the picture. So there was the drawing like this, and then you showed us a photo. And so on Artesia Boulevard, the building is on the left-hand side of that photo. And on the right-hand side of Artesia, I'm assuming those are the stone or concrete block walls of the back of houses that back up to Artesia Boulevard.
If we
That is
look at the
correct.
staff report exhibit.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So the photo you showed, you talked about how the sidewalk area of Artesia Boulevard next to the business slopes down into the parking area and to the building. So
Right, if you look at Exhibit 6, you can see that from the inside. So if you look from the inside, which is Exhibit 6 on page 33, since we don't have the visual, it says, a view looking south towards Artesia Boulevard and the single-family residential properties. So you can see there how the asphalt area, the parking area is kind of depressed, and you can see how it slopes up to Artesia Boulevard. So that's that. And then the other photo, if you look on the next page, page 34, it shows the photo that we had on the screen previously from the sidewalk across Artesia. And Artesia is a 100-foot arterial street. It's a big street, and it's a major highway. So from that side of the street, this is the view that you see there. And you can kind of see how the cars are depressed below.
Okay, so on Artesia Boulevard, right there next to the property, is there street parking allowed?
Amandeep, do you have?
Not, but on Edwards it is.
Okay. The drawing, so actually, sorry, let me ask a question. When you demolish the 2 buildings, are you going to come in and grade the property and raise that up? Or is the grade going to stay where it is? You're just going to level it and then rebuild on basically the same level? So they're not going to raise the property up to be level with the slope would be removed. You're going to keep the slope. Okay, they're nodding yes, so I'm going to go with that. So that's good. Thank you. So no parking on Artesia. Going to keep the slope the way it is, so to go down. So that's going to give you some distance. And I think you might be the person who wrote that amazing letter. They're going to keep the distance there. You have the block walls there. You have a big 100 feet. Why would you make a sidewalk path entrance to Artesia when no one's going to park on Artesia? But the plans show very clearly a pathway coming off of Artesia down to the office building. Why would we do that?
We do that because it's public access, and it's part of I believe, state ADA access.
Does it have to be from Artesia Boulevard?
Well, there is no sidewalks on Edwards. There's no sidewalks in the whole industrial park. There's no sidewalks. So the only sidewalk is from Artesia Boulevard. And I know the project architect is here, and they have, maybe he could explain better, but every time you submit to building department for projects, you have to show a valid path of travel to a public sidewalk for access, and it's for access by the public. So they have a means in which, so they don't have to trample through landscaping. They have an actual level, safe path to get to the building. And it's, we review tenant improvement plans every day in community development, and we have older buildings all the time, and they don't have a path of travel, so they have to add it. And that's exactly why we added the condition of approval called 62 path of travel into the report, because as I was explaining, we have a big slope and we have these huge, I don't know how tall they are, 180 feet. I don't know how big they are. They're really tall trees. And we want to make sure that when we place the sidewalks, that we don't hurt the roots. And there may be a situation where we've had in other cases where you have to have a little retaining walls to create that safe path at the right slope, because it has to be at the right slope so that, you know, someone in a wheelchair isn't like going downhill, 40 miles an hour off the, off that slope. So they may have to switch back, and there's all kinds of challenges that the architects must do to meet those state ADA public access requirements. And so we put that condition 62 in because we wanted to make sure that we don't damage the trees, and most likely we'll consult with the city arborist to make sure that whatever path of travel we do dodges those tree roots, so that we can maintain them, because we don't want to cut them, because then they'll fall down.
Okay. So at the expense of showing some of my ignorance, I know the city and the architect are experts at what they do. I'm gonna be a little bit of Captain Obvious. They're only on this sidewalk if they come out of that Coyote Wash, because the sidewalk doesn't extend. You got to come across some kind of opening there, and then it comes down, and they're going to have to go down a slope if they're going to be coming down that way. Maybe there should be just some conversation around extending the sidewalk to a little more down Edwards and then bring it across that way. Again, I don't know the slope, the grade of the slope, any of that, or the actual legal ramifications, but I just think we're putting in a sidewalk nobody's going to use. So just my 2 cents on that. I want to move on now. Thank you for all the information on that. I want to move on and ask, when we did the 2 city meetings, so the city did one, and then I believe the company did one, hosted one. Is that?
Both of them were hosted by the applicant,
Okay.
both times, because of the first, we wanted to get, the applicant wanted to give the resident opportunity to come back again after we had provided them the environmental, in case they wanted to discuss anything. And they had questions about something else that they read in the reports. So the applicant wanted to give them another opportunity. Normally, we've never had 2, and we've just recently been doing community meetings for the last few years, and this is the first time we've done 2. Or we've requested that but we highly suggested that they do, because we want to make sure that that we're given the opportunity for the applicant to address anything that would be a concern from the neighbor.
Thank you. So we had 2 meetings. One resident came to each meeting, and was it the same resident?
No,
So
it was 2 different, 2
residents.
separate. The
Okay.
first resident didn't come to the second meeting.
Okay. So I want to spend a minute and go back to the letter that our fellow citizen of Cerritos wrote us. First of all, thank you. Appreciate what you did and put in there, and for taking your time to come down. Before I ask a question or two, is there anything that you would like to say or add since public comments are still open?
Thank you so much. So first of all, I'd like to thank staff for doing an awesome job of presenting everything very well and listening to the residents. Having these 2 meetings was really great, and doing the thorough analysis was also very important. I did want to clarify something here when we were talking about the view analysis. Mr. Gandhi asked the question, Commissioner Gandhi. I did want to clarify that analysis, my point in that statement was not the view from my house. It was the view of the trucks turning left onto Artesia. We have already established that Artesia beyond Marquardt is not a truck route. So all the trucks coming from the property will be on Edwards and will have to make a left onto Artesia Boulevard. My house is where you sit, Madam Chair, and the trucks turning left. They're 45 feet long trailers. When they make a left, their lights are right into my rooms. So that was my point when I asked for the raising of the walls. I do understand that in most of the projects, and I'm a planner, I do this day in and day out, so I totally understand where I've been in their shoes all the time. I do understand we don't request project applicants to do this on private property, but I did make this point because it is important. This current property is an office building. There are not trucks there at this point. When we talked about the traffic study, they admitted that the traffic study the total traffic, there is a reduction in traffic, but the type of vehicles changes. The type of vehicles changes to trucks. It doesn't impact us with 6 feet high block walls on the backside if it's a car turning left onto that Artesia Boulevard, but it does when it is a tall truck. So it's really those 4 or 5 residents between the Coyote Channel to Edwards who are being impacted. So totally understandable that it is not a major impact, because in the 47,000 residents of the city, it's like 20 people who are being impacted, so it is not a big number, and it's definitely not a major impact, but for those 20 people, it is an impact. So that's the point that I wanted to make. Just as an FYI, you were talking about large-scale logistics, and when I wrote that letter, this was not in place, but today there is a state law called AB 98. These kind of users would not even be allowed to even submit an application or be allowed in those areas going forward. But light industrial uses are still there, and they can be permitted. So that's why we are here today. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Could you just state your name for the record? I should have asked you that at the beginning.
Sorry, I'm Manraj Bhatia, and I'm a resident of Cerritos, right across from where the property is.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate your input. Okay, so I looked at her email, and Vice Chair Gandhi already went over basically her 3 asks. The one in the middle about the last mile facility use, I think that's taken care of. So you wouldn't have to worry about that one. Then the other 2 are the timing and then the visual putting up a fence. If they're turning out, you're right, that fence on either side's not going to stop the truck lights from coming into your yard if they're turning left onto Artesia. So I'm not sure that fence would help. And I just don't know how we could help it. So the other thing.
Sorry, to clarify, the ask was to raise the fence height from 6 feet to 8 feet. That would help.
On your side?
On our side.
So the house side?
Correct.
Okay.
And as Sandy mentioned, this is sloping up. So it kind of
Yeah,
goes further down if you're keeping that 6 feet level.
okay. Okay, so now I see what you're asking.
The
You're saying
single,
you
single
would
level
like-
floor plan,
Yeah.
the window heights are
Yeah.
not more than 8 feet. So with a fence height of 8 feet on our side, that will help.
That would help. Okay. So basically, you're saying it would be nice for the city or the applicant or both to finance this extension of the block walls behind the 5 or 6 homes. Okay. All right. Now I understand what you're asking. So that's not something that necessarily, based on my city attorney here, that the planning commission has any kind of jurisdiction over or anything. So I'm going to let that third one go.
Perhaps do the recommendation.
Let me, yeah, okay, let's,
Well, yeah, if I may, as far as, the jurisdiction of the planning commission, it's certainly within your jurisdiction to review a request like this. As
Yeah.
far as I think you may be asking the ability to be able to impose as a condition of approval any effect to other privately owned property or others off-site from where this is, there would be, number one, there would be legal issues to doing that on other person's property. And even if there were the ability to have the consent or go forward with it, then that would also require some means of addressing it specifically to those individual properties that may have the offsite improvement done.
and wouldn't the 8 feet exceed the height that the fences can
That
be?
I'll defer to the planners, but it could. It very well could.
Subdivision walls can actually be 8 feet tall.
Up to 8 feet. Okay, good. All right, thank you. So let me focus on the first one. So while you're right, you're not 47,000 strong. That's still your house, and you still have young kids in that neighborhood, and they have school hours, and I get that. I'm a huge proponent of allowing businesses to come into the city and do the business that they need to do, because everybody wants to make money. I mean, that's how things work. Having strong feelings for both sides, for the business and for the families. I'd like to ask the applicants to, I don't know if you've seen this email or not, but I'd like to ask you, what are your thoughts about, I think 7 to 10 is too long. I have had children, 10 o'clock at night, still having trucks coming in and out from behind my house would be really loud. It would be distracting. So I started thinking about, especially since we went through a time change, right? The fall back and spring forward. 7 to 8 is not going to have a lot of impact until the winter time of the lights and the noise. How would that sound as opposed to 7 to 10? And just state your name for the record.
Absolutely. My name is Joe Williams, and I'm also with Link, and thank you very much for your time this evening. I want to also address one thing at the beginning, just about our business. We're active owners and operators throughout the United States. We're also very active developers, and it may seem counterintuitive that we would propose to build a building without an occupant, but that's really how the industrial business works. We do not get interest in our buildings until they're at least under construction. In today's market, it's even generally until they're fully up and lights are turned on in the buildings and we can host an open house. That's how our business works. And it may seem like we should have a long list of whoever this may be, but as Sandy pointed out, there's a clothing company down the street. We'd love to have them as a tenant. We won't know if they want to lease that building until that building is up and operational, or there may be a food company down the street that also would like to operate it. And to that point, the key thing for us is to deliver a facility that can house as many occupants and tenants as possible with as limited restrictions as possible. That's a key thing. And so when we are competing to attract tenancy, And this isn't, I want to also emphasize, this is not a large facility by any stretch. You know, we build a lot bigger buildings. This is only 58,000 square feet on a site that's less than 3 acres. But when we're in the business of competing for tenants and we want to bring them and be a good landlord to those tenants, you know, when we have a restriction imposed on us on when they can operate, they have the decision to potentially go to Norwalk or Santa Fe Springs and go into a building that doesn't have any of those restrictions. So it's already an impediment to leasing with any restrictions, because, you know, you want as much freedom as possible to operate in a building. We're happy to accept that limitation, but, you know, continuing to increase that will be a burden for tenancy and will make it challenging. And the last thing that we want to do is make this investment here into a building that we can't lease. So it would be very difficult to accept that
Okay,
condition.
great. Thank you. Before you leave, did any other commissioners want to ask a couple questions? Go ahead, Commissioner.
What are your thoughts on having the wall as they suggested?
I'm sorry. Can you say it one more time? I'm
On having an extension of the wall.
the 6 to 8 feet extension. You know, I think as we discussed it, you know, that's, you know, will certainly be a financial burden to the project itself. I mean, we're happy to have a conversation with the resident about different ways to mitigate that. And we're willing to have that. I don't know how we would have that imposition on this project. Defer to the city staff and city attorney on that. But we're, you know,
I guess in the larger scheme of things that you guys are doing, just an extension of 2 feet or 3 feet wouldn't make a big difference, right?
sure, absolutely.
Could I interject and ask you, it's a related question. I've seen homes where there are trees put up that are tall to create a barrier, and I imagine that would pretty much solve the issue here for the homeowner.
Yeah.
Would that be something?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
you guys have done this forever. You're very smart people, and it would be nice to find a solution to this.
Absolutely.
Being a good neighbor, so that just came to my mind.
We're absolutely in the business of being a good neighbor, and we would welcome the opportunity to come up with a solution to mitigate this with the resident. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have, not for you, so thank you, appreciate it. I just, in the interest of time, I'll ask this really quick. On the road study or the traffic study, and this just is a curiosity, the amount of wear and tear that the different types of traffic produce, is that part of the study or not?
That was not a focus on this traffic study. This traffic study focused on the level of service at the intersections, the delay that was discussed earlier.
Okay. And then I just have two comments. One, I'm looking at the designs and the drawings, and it looks gorgeous, and it's nice to have beautiful buildings in the city. So hopefully this goes through, and I hope that you're able to solve some of the concerns that the neighbors have. It would be really nice to see. And secondly, this is off the topic, kind of, but I remember spending a couple, 3 hours when we had a project where they had all these open doors, and there was an issue of noise. And I find it very ironic that we spent 2 hours talking about noise coming out of the house over the wall and getting to the neighbors. And so I completely understand the irony of this whole thing, but, you know, we need to also see the city grow. So I'm really grateful that you did voice your concerns. We're fortunate to live in a city where we have wonderful neighbors that are good businessmen and, you know, are concerned about the citizens. So I hope that some resolution would be found there, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Vice Chair Gandhi. Another question about order of process. So, under our authority or jurisdiction, we're going to make a motion about approving conditional use permit to change to this manufacturing uses. And then we're going to make a motion or not regarding the 2024-10. My thoughts are, I'd like to know, I would like for the builders in good faith to meet with our resident and see if there's some compromise that doesn't necessarily cut into profits. When I work for a pretty big corporation, so I understand that. But I also know if you're buying trees already for this side of the street, what's some trees for the other side, right? But we want to make sure you love living in Cerritos as well. So I think somewhere there's a compromise, and I would ask that that be done in good faith. If that, once we make a motion here, it leaves us and it goes to the council for approval. If the good faith hasn't been exercised, the Cerritos residents may come to the city council meeting to speak to the council. Is that true?
Yes, Madam Chair. The residents can always come to the council meeting to speak on this item. But yes, that would be one item they could speak to.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so don't clap. I don't have any more questions or comments. You have a question?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'd just like to say as a developer, many projects, I really have a lot of appreciation for what you guys go through, the excruciating demands that it takes nowadays, especially in California, to get things done, get things approved, the time it takes. I look at this environmental report. It's amazing that you have to go through all of these things to build your building. So thank you for your persistence.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrd. So if there's no other public comments on this topic, I'll give you another 10 seconds to run to the podium. All right, I'm going to close the public comment section. I would like to say I do believe you guys will act in good faith, and I appreciate that you're considering it and that you'll have those conversations. And to the residents, please don't let that opportunity pass you by. Make sure you meet with them. At this point, if there's no other questions from the commission, I'd like for someone to make a motion.
I'll make the motion to approve. Are we doing both the resolutions at the same time?
I'll second.
So,
And if I could, Madam Chair and the commissioners, so the motion and the second is for staff recommendation on the two resolutions. And I believe there was a request from the chair to be included in the motion, or was it just a comment to make a good faith effort on?
if it can be put in the motion, then I'd like to add it.
It may
But
be.
if it
It
okay.
may be if the movement is willing and the person who seconds agrees to include it, it may be included in
Okay.
the motion as well.
So-
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was
So-
to,
Hang on.
Go ahead, finish.
I was gonna say, and that was for the applicant to make good faith efforts to meet with the resident to address the site, I guess, issue and potentially planting trees on the resident's side. Is that does that correctly capture?
So I'd like for the motion to be that the business makes a good faith effort to meet with the residents regarding her concerns about the lights in the back of the house.
Okay.
I wasn't going to mandate how it's done, just that conversation happens.
Okay. And is that okay with the maker of the motion
Yeah,
and the second?
I'm
Yes.
fine.
And Madam Chair, I'd like to remind you that staff also has some modifications to conditions that would be included in those resolutions.
That's the ones you mentioned at the beginning of the presentation.
Correct.
Regarding the typo and a couple of other things. Do I
That is
need
correct.
to list those again here, or are we good that we know them?
They're in the record already, just as long as it's acknowledged and it's part of the motion and the second, if that's okay.
Okay.
Sure. Do I need to restate it, or we're good?
I'd say the motion as amended, and it's in the record. We'll make sure it's reflected accurately in the minutes. And if that's okay with Chair Javari, then Okay, then we can move forward with taking the vote.
All right. Go ahead and vote.
I think we're going to have to do the roll call because I don't believe our screens are working. Yes, so please do a roll call.
Sorry?
Is yours off?
Yeah, my screen's off.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, we'll go ahead and do a roll call again. So we'll start with Commissioner Byrd,
Yes.
Commissioner Javari,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gandhi,
Yes.
and Chair Gilheis.
Yes.
All right, so the motion passed 5-0. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your time, your patience here. Love to see businesses come in that are willing to listen to the residents of the city. To our resident, thank you for taking the time, and I think you guys will be able to figure something out. Okay, so we will move on to the next.
I just want to
Oh, I'm
thank you
sorry.
guys and Sandy. I didn't get the chance to thank the planning staff for all of the collaboration and efforts that have gone into this. It's been a pleasure working with the planning staff, and I've really enjoyed it. And thank you guys again for your time tonight and consideration.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we will move on to agenda item 7A, and that's reports designated from the commission liaison. Do we have any reports?
Yes, thank you, Chair and Planning Commissioners. As you're aware, tonight I'm filling in for Director of Community Development, Kristen Aguila, this evening due to a recent passing of her brother. I would like to request from the Chair and the Commissioners that we close this evening's Planning Commission meeting in honor of Kristen's brother, who is Ryan Dexter, who is 39 years old. Thank you, and I have no further items.
Yes, thank you. I will remember for us to do that. Moving on to item 7B on the agenda, which is the commissioners' reports. So, Commissioner Byrd, do you have anything? Vice Chair Gandhi?
No, I got nothing.
Commissioner Polito?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I wanted to thank the city for your support on the passing of my mom. Her services were a week and a half ago, so I wanted to thank city staff, Assistant City Manager Kathy Matsumoto for attending the viewing services on behalf of the city, and then for the flowers and the card from the city. Just really appreciate it on behalf of my family. Secondly, just wanted to November 11th is Veterans Day. I know we have our annual ceremony that day, so I encourage all the residents to come. And also to check out the Veterans Project website where our residents are highlighted, whoever are veterans. It shows their service, how many years they've served, their tours of duty, information such as that. My late father-in-law, Rudy Polito, and then my father, Nazario Perlis Jr. are included in that. And I just wanted to say happy Veterans Day to all the veterans, and also my dad, and then everyone who's served, and also it's his birthday today, so happy birthday to my dad. And thank you for your service to everyone. And lastly, just wanted to wish our residents here a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Polito. Commissioner Javari?
Yeah, I just wanted to report that excited about the Diwali event that happened on October 19th, and it was a resounding success. I wanted to thank everyone who participated, who attended the event, the Festival of Lights, and it was a great show. Thank you so much. Thanks for everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner Javari. Okay, so I just have a few things. First of all, I actually did go over to the Diwali Festival and shopped and ate and walked around, and it was a great event. And I'm already looking forward to next year. So you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
I also want to acknowledge the veterans and the Veterans Day ceremony that they're going to have here on Monday. Like Commissioner Polito, my dad's a veteran. I come from a strong family with numerous veterans, and they do things that I couldn't personally go out and do, and so I appreciate the veterans that we have in our country. Also, yes, Turkey Day's coming, Thanksgiving, so to all of the staff and my fellow commissioners and our city residents, have a great and safe Thanksgiving. And finally, out of admiration, affection, and support for our friend and colleague, Director Aguila, I would like to close this evening's Planning Commission meeting in honor of Ryan Dexter, Director Aguila's brother. The meeting is adjourned.